That's gonna be good, y'all. I can't wait.
It's going to be intense, I'm sure. Well, not for us, just for y'all. We already lived it. We good.
Okay, so Jason wanted to ask the person. Maybe let him start talking about it.
Let me give just a quick. It's not a disclaimer, but I want to make a quick statement. When you think in terms of infidelity, always know that there are two POVs concerning the two individuals, or whether it be spouses, point of views. So sometimes people only hear or they create their own personal perspective from one point of view without talking to both parties. And what from my own personal experience throughout this 26 months, is that there were people who gravitated towards my wife and just assumed that I was just this bad, terrible guy. And there were friendships that the separation was created because of infidelity. We stopped talking. We did not talk for those 26 months.
Lifelong friends.
Lifelong friends, yes. Because, once again, when you're the husband and infidelity happens, you're the bad guy. And no one ever asked myself what was my perspective, what happened, how did the infidelity happen. They just assumed that one day I woke up and decided
what they were saying,
I was going to cheat on my wife. So that's that piece right there. Let's get into the 26
Let me say one thing. And they just assumed that I was just sitting around for the 26 months waiting for him to come back. They all assumed that I was in mourning and he was off living his life and I was not living mine. Let me put that out there. That is not correct. I lived my life. Just because I didn't live my life publicly, and his life was more in the public eye because of the conversations that were had, and people knew that the infidelity, the reason why we separated was due to his infidelity. I don't want anybody to think that I wasn't doing anything those 26 months. I was just at home laying in bed crying and wallowing in self-pity. I was not.
Probably not the case.
No, there was times that I was, but I don't want anybody to think that he just left me and I was distraught and broken and I stopped living, and that's not how it happened. I own my part in it as well. Okay, Mr. Jason, I think we're ready.
Yes.
Well, my question is a two-part.
Okay.
And
who is it for?
It's concerning the kids.
Okay.
Because as you all were explaining last week, as we were closing out the show and talking about the 26-month separation,
Yes.
That's one thing that really hit me. Because considering that you all have a blended family and bringing everything together, the work that you all had to do to bring everything together.
The family, yeah.
My first question is, as far as when you all let the kids know what was going on, their emotions, their feelings, considering that. And the second question that I have is, what did it take as far as when you all came back
For the kids?
to get the kids back to where they felt safe?
I don't think you guys ever asked for that.
Wow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Let's go with the first question, part one. With the kids, that night it was public, meaning that when I came home, and I think we talked about it that night, I came home that night with the intention of reconciling my marriage. That was my intent. Unfortunately, it did not happen that way. Conversation started, argument started, bam, split decision made. You need to get out. Cool, I'm leaving. Kids were right there. So there was no conversation really with them in the beginning. Be like, me and Pops is taking we're just going to separate for a little bit, having some trouble in our marriage. We need to figure some things out. It was, bam, we're out of here. And it was put in the forefront, just like that.
It was. At that time, we were not mature enough to understand, or we chose not to practice maturity to understand the effect that this would have on our children. I think in the moment, as I said before, I was a very selfish individual. So at the moment, I was thinking about me, how I felt, how I was hurt, how I was embarrassed. So never in my mind did it register how this was going to impact my children. And I'm just being completely honest. All I thought was, I'm in pain and I want this to stop.
Okay. Okay.
Back together?
So, well, let's deal with this, the back together later as we're going through it.
I wanted to ask, did any of the kids have questions? Although you said it was out in the open, did they ask y'all what happened? And were you guys able to be open and honest with them about it? And how did they handle it? Was there anger towards one or the other in the situation, or no?
Yeah. There was anger. I believe my oldest son expressed it the most. If I'm not mistaken, he was a senior in high school, so they were, what were they? 17. So they would have been 17, 15, 13, and 12. If I'm remembering correctly, that's what they would have been. The 17-year-old was very, very angry. He and I had a major fallout. He told me that I make snap decisions. He was very angry. The youngest two children, they didn't say too much. And then our youngest daughter lived with her mother. So I'm not really sure how that conversation went with you. Because I don't think we've talked to them about how they felt about us separating since we've been back together. Again, I think we said before, we make our decision and we live with it. Are you with us or not? And that's the way we lived our life. As selfish as that may be, it is what it is. So did she have a conversation with you?
We did not. I did not talk to any of the kids in reference to the separation. I think for me, I was too embarrassed that we had even gotten to that point. Yes. So no, we never had conversations at all.
We don't. I'm sorry, we don't have a question, but cousin Iman wants to know what the topic was for tonight.
Surviving Infidelity, Part 2. So since you guys kind of really didn't take on the thought process of what the children might have been going through at that time, because at that moment, like you said, y'all was being a little petty and a little selfish.
That was the maturation piece.
Yeah, we were not mature.
We weren't mature in our decision making, and we did not consider the kids when we made the step decision to part.
I wanted to point out the difference in the emotions that we felt. If you notice, he said he was embarrassed, and I said I was angry. Just the difference of the emotion that. And I probably was embarrassed as well that, oh my God, my husband is having an affair, but I was more mad than anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would have been too.
I couldn't even get embarrassed because I was mad. But do you understand just the dynamics of the difference of the emotion? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I probably would have been pretty angry about that situation as well. If I was in your shoes, I don't know. Thank God I never had to deal with that, but we've dealt with all other kind of craziness, you know what I'm saying? So I'm really thankful that you guys are being open and brave and to share your story with us. And I'm sure that there are people on the other line that may want to ask some questions and maybe don't know how to ask it or whatever. Now, you said last week there were signs, but you just did not pay attention, right?
I don't necessarily believe there were signs for me. He asked me to stop working. He told me he needed me at home at night. I'm extremely literal, so I need you to say exactly what you mean. So if you mean go left, first of all, tell me which way is left.
Boy.
And then if you want me to go left, then say that. I'm very, and it came along with just being able to communicate because I didn't grow up in a family of communicators. You know what I'm saying? You get mad, you stop talking. My husband is a communicator. We don't go to bed mad. He mean what he say. He say what he mean. And there was a time when I was a little vague in my communication, and I couldn't. So I thought he meant, I need you to come home. I'm like, oh, you just want me to come home? He didn't say quit your job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If that's what he wanted, I'm like, hey, quit your job. But I would be like, no, I love my money.
You know.
Right.
So
Right,
because you are little. See, I think that with me and Jay, we have that a little bit too, because he didn't grow up in a family of communicators, and I communicate all the time. Sometimes I don't know how to stop communicating. But you know, so he is a literal person like that. So with her being so literal, how did that happen? You know, because sometimes when people are not good communicators, they have the tendency to just shut down on you. I mean, like completely shut down. And the only conversation you can get might be a kind of a hostile conversation, or a conversation that make you feel some kind of way and make you more hostile. So, like, you know, when we had to get through those types of times where we had a heated discussion about whatever the situation was, and things shut down, you know, I still kept talking, whether he was responding or not. So how did that happen for you guys? You know,
how did we get to this point, or
no,
communication?
How did that communication go in those 26 months where y'all wasn't living together, but at the same time y'all stayed married, and whatever y'all was doing. How did that communication happen? Was every conversation an argument? Was every conversation disagreement? And if so, how did the reconciliation happen?
This is probably not going to make sense.
Anybody but us.
Anybody but us. First and foremost, even before the marriage, we were friends. So it's an oxymoron, because it's hard to think that if you would have looked at the day that we separated and how heated that moment was, and even after that, we were still friends, hung out, went on dates, intimate moments. It would be difficult for somebody looking in to think, now ain't no way on this earth that they are separated. It just didn't make sense, but we were friends first and foremost, and we still enjoy spending time with each other. That part never changed. The part that changed was the trust in the relationship. That's why we were separated, because my actions created distrust. And as far as living with each other as husband and wife, that just wasn't an option at the time.
And I also had my actions that created a lack of intimacy, a lack of emotional intimacy in our marriage. Just keep in mind, intimacy is more than two people being together physically. So yeah, it was very, very weird for us to be separated and still be friends. Did that happen immediately? No. No. But we were still friends. I told somebody this a long time ago, and they chuckled, but it was almost like we were addicted to one another. It was almost like I could not shake him.
Wow.
It was almost like an addiction. Like I couldn't. And trust me, I tried, and clearly he was living his own life, so he was trying. So it wasn't like, oh, I was calling him all the time, oh baby. He was calling me as well. So yeah, it now that we look back on it, it's funny because we're like, people probably thought they are crazy. And we probably were.
So almost in a way, it's almost like the animal magnetism that you all had with each other.
Right.
That it's a bond that you have that people can see, and sometimes it's hard to explain.
It is. I was created for him, and he was created for me.
Come on.
And at the time, I want everybody to understand, we weren't in church. We weren't Pastor and Lady Stewart when we got married.
Okay.
I was Tiffany. Very heavy. I was a very, very heavy marijuana smoker. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Oh, okay.
I was the cussing girl, and but so we weren't in church. So when people were like, oh, the Reverend and his wife, no, the Reverend and his wife didn't get separated, but Edward and Tiffany did.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so, again, like I said, if this all had to happen again to get us where we are now, both in our marriage and in our spiritual walk, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Just to get us to where we are, or even to get us to a greater place than where we are now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to do this again. I'm just saying.
Okay, let's go ahead and rectify that.
I want to come back a little bit. I do have a question for you. Now, when you were saying to your wife, "I need you at home," did you feel that at that moment when you were saying that there may be some actions that you felt that you couldn't keep yourself from doing?
No, at the time, it was just simply Sunday through Thursday. When I lay down at night, my wife wasn't there.
Okay.
The intent behind her taking the job initially was it was only supposed to be how long?
3 weeks.
It ended up being how long?
4 years.
So that's where the separation emotionally started. Yes.
Now, keep in mind, when I took this job for 3 weeks, our marriage was in an amazing place.
It's in a great place.
Like from the very, like I told you, we were on a fast track. Other than the little hiccup we had with our kids, and we made the decision, like, we was good.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an opportunity to make cash. I got paid cash. It was strictly real good cash. And so it was a 3-week assignment. The lady I was taking care of was a wealthy woman. She was on hospice. She had lung cancer, had lung cancer for several years. It just so happened, I was able to be there with her, and for 4 years she lived on. And so that is, wow, shoot.
But from as far as the infidelity, I don't really have a timetable, but it was something.
So
because I wasn't seeking to. My desire was not to cheat on my wife. I wasn't seeking anyone to replace her. It was just I had a need, which was the emotional piece, and an outlet was created, and that's where the fidelity started.
So what you were? So you saying it was an emotional piece? So were you mentally stimulated by her conversation?
That's what drew me to her in the beginning was conversation.
Okay.
Our conversation, even to this day, is bar none. I've never been able to.
She's talking about me.
Oh.
She's talking about the other chick.
So that's what I'm saying.
Let's just clarify.
Yeah.
Get in trouble.
Thank you, Tiff.
Okay.
So when was it? Because see, technically, you was lonely because your wife was not home from this day to this day, right?
Right, but
Okay.
that connection was just a void being filled.
Even if it wasn't stimulating anyway, just the fact that she would be there if you called.
She was there. The conversations were there, so that was the void. So I couldn't have those conversations with Tiff. So that outlet was there. You had that conversation. That void is filled.
Okay.
It goes right back to the emotional orgasm.
Okay.
It goes right back to that. It goes right back to that, which is what started the physical affair.
Yes.
So again, in this 26 months, y'all never stop ministering to each other. I'm gonna use a clean word because never stop.
That connection never stopped.
But how you? I'm confused because
Go ahead.
wait a minute.
Say whatever you mean.
Yeah, I'm about to. So step out the room. Step out the room. Okay. So when you mad though,
Right.
I mean, like,
Who was mad?
You
you weren't mad?
Not in that moment. No, I wasn't mad. I went at least for a good hour and a half. I was not mad. Now after that, I might have been like, all right then, bro.
Thanks for meeting the need. Thanks for your deed.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my
God bless you
Lord.
and good night.
You want Russell Simmons on me?
Again, it's so hard to explain it to anybody. Because to us, it's funny. To other people, it's not funny. They're like, y'all crazy.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
But it is what it is. No, in those 2 years, we did not.
Did you see somebody else in
Yeah.
those 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, on both levels? Emotional and the other level?
Nobody's ever asked that. I've never heard that question asked.
What's going on?
That even brings up another good
Girl,
point.
wait a minute.
That brings up a good point because
Because we were talking about payback.
Oh, you want me to answer the question?
Yeah, answer the question. So you said you was living your life doing you.
I was living my life.
Oh.
Okay, so if even
Well,
though
we never had that
We
conversation.
never had that conversation.
Never had
So this is now.
uncharted territory.
Yeah, I'm like, here's what I will tell you.
well,
Yeah.
I don't want to stir up no
Oh, no, we
okay.
good.
Well, then answer the
I
question.
will tell you
please.
that there was a time that I was in a relationship with someone, probably a year after we separated. I was in a relationship
Because you didn't think y'all were gonna get back together.
And
But this whole time y'all still getting y'all groove on.
in my mind, there was always hope.
Okay.
There was always hope because we still saw each other. He was still my very best friend. I still loved him, even though I was dating this guy. There would be times I would go on dates with him with my wedding ring on.
So he just didn't have no preference.
Well, here's what happened. Where at the end, he said his words were, "If your husband doesn't want you, why does he let somebody else have you?" That's what kind of pushed me to file for the divorce. He was like, "Here's the money, go get it done,
make it happen.
make it happen."
Because you ain't about to keep. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Whatever. I think that's the first time. Is that the first time you heard that word? No. Yeah. But yeah, I was in a relationship for about a year. My husband didn't know I was in a relationship
Oh,
because I was very
discreet.
extremely, very discreet. And I don't think there was a time that I was unavailable to him. Because in my mind, he was still my husband. So keep in mind that when this first happened, when we first got married, we weren't saved. During this 2 years, I gave my life to Christ.
Okay.
Now, I wasn't like, woo, because keep in mind, I had a boyfriend now. And part of me having a boyfriend was trying to help me get over him. You know what I'm saying? So the boyfriend,
Yes.
I didn't have an emotional connection to the boyfriend, if that makes sense.
It makes
My
me
emotions were tied to him.
I remember that.
You know what I'm saying?
And
I was emotionally connected to him after I had been disconnected and he ran off and got connected to somebody else. And I'm like, no, come back. I really do want you. You know what I'm saying? It was that mixed signal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Jason.
Jason has a question. Go ahead, Jason.
Anybody out there that has a question, feel free. We'll
Please
answer.
answer the question.
And my question is from a situation that I was in prior to being married.
Okay.
Myself, I was involved with a married woman at one time, and one thing that I found myself in, even back then, I wasn't in church, wasn't where I was now in my walk. But I found myself when she was with somebody else. I knew.
Oh, is that a question you're asking?
I was wondering, did you all have those moments during that time of separation?
Because I mean, like, if your connection was that strong,
Yeah.
you knew.
You mean
You could
intimately?
feel it.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that having a moment like that when I was messing with a guy. And
Yeah.
That, like, I was like out of body, out of spirit in that room when it was going down. The Lord took me in there. You like that? You know, I was like,
Well, I
wow.
didn't want to be in no rooms because I wasn't good there. I wouldn't.
Well, I didn't want to be either.
Now,
It was a
as
surprise.
calm as I am, I'm not that mentally stable. But yeah, yeah. And again, when I tell you it was like an addiction, that's the only way I could describe it to you. There's no way that 26 months of separation, me knowing he's with somebody else, him having an idea that I'm with somebody else, that we would come back together and be able to move forward if it wasn't a God thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true.
Because if you think about it, you guys are thinking about it as you guys are talking to us, and I'm sure the people listening are blown away in your natural mind. Like, in your natural mind, like, something is wrong with them. They seem normal, but something is wrong with them. And honestly, I'm sure our family probably wants to be like, something. I think a couple of my friends was like, you good? I'm like, I'm good. But again, I was able to make the decision, and I was rocking with the decision that I made. So,
Okay.
you got something to say there?
I think in the 26 months, for me, it wasn't. It felt great in the beginning. The second half of that 26 months was a rough period. It was rough. It was rough.
Okay, when you say rough,
It
can
was
you
rough.
get? So, what if somebody is in your position right now?
Because what happens is
Tell us
you
about
get
what that
so
rough.
far out there in the deep water that you don't see how I can make it back to land.
And will land still be there? Because I was laying.
Okay.
So was I going? Because once you've gone so far, you know what I'm saying? Although we were still friends and still connected, there was a time when I was like, bro, I'm good. I'm good.
So in the way you saying you were good, that's.
I don't need your
Did you
presence
see that
right now.
as rejection in any kind of way when she said that to you?
Had caused her to feel at this point of the relationship what she felt, and it was justified. I had done a lot. And everything she felt, thought, was thinking, planning to do, she was justified in doing.
Here's the difference, and here's a lot of my lot. I knew about his. He didn't know about mine.
But this whole time, I'm gonna go back there. You were still getting the dick.
Yeah, baby.
Oh
Yeah.
my Lord, I don't know how to take it. I mean, I'm still
And
like
see,
trying
here's the
in
problem.
my mind.
The difference is that you're hearing it from me,
Mhm.
and you don't generally hear it from other people. Other people tell you when they separated, I left him, he cheated on me, I moved on. It's nothing.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10,
They
when
go
they are
back.
separated, they're still going back because there's
Yes,
there's
Lord.
an emotional connection.
There's
There's more in when you think about marriage and marriage being a spiritual covenant. We were spiritually locked together,
for sure.
whether we wanted to be or not. We
For
were
sure.
even though we got married and we were not quote unquote saved or Christians, we were locked together because again, he was created for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way that we would be able to A, live through what we lived through, and B, be able to sit here and talk about it. Please know that when we get done talking about this and we go home, we move on with our life. We ain't at home like, I can't believe you said that. We don't get down like that. We talked about this so much because we had to be able to, in order for us to be relevant, in order for us to be able to tell our story, we had to be able to share it with one another.
Which is the blessing for somebody who might be on the other end who needs to hear this story and have a piece of hope and understand that maybe you might be that one that's out there in the middle of the water trying to get back to land, and understanding that even though you can see land, you don't know how to get from the middle of the ocean back to this piece of land where you at without no sharks getting you, without getting no more hang-ups or whatever. And we're using it like that because that's the way Elder Stuart, said it. He was out in the deep and didn't know how to get back, to the land. He couldn't seem to find his way back there.
And let me say this: things are happening in front of you, right? And he's like, it's not enough. So it wasn't enough that I lost. I'm probably making $65,000 a year. Gone. So that's not enough. So you're like, car gone.
So you was getting this whooping from the Lord.
And I'm getting hammered. And it's still wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough to get you back to doing the right thing, is what you're saying, right?
It wasn't my decision to do the right thing. It wasn't my decision. We talked about it last week. We were content right? We're at the end of the 26 months. We were content. We're going our separate ways.
Good.
We're good. Paperwork is signed. Only thing that we need to do is get that paperwork in front of the judge, and we're done. As surreal as I'm sitting here having this conversation with y'all, the Lord said, "Go home."
Wow.
Like I'm talking to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Go home.
And this was the look on my face.
I missed that.
No, I'm not even. Now, up until this point, nothing about. Now, don't get me wrong. I did go to church on Sundays because I thought my life was so foul. If nothing else, I needed to be in church on Sunday to have some type of repentance because from whatever.
Oh,
Wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. Wait. What did I miss? What was that?
I said he went to church with the old girl. That's why he's like, whatever.
Okay.
He's like, I missed it.
Right, yeah.
But it's sure the Lord said go home, and I thought, I don't think that's gonna happen. He said go home. So
if the Lord told you, you already know he had made that way ready for you.
Yeah.
But she was addicted to you. She never said no.
Oh, baby, I was done.
She said no.
Oh, when she said no, that's when you thought,
This
God.
was the end of the
At the
26
end.
months.
At the end of the 26
They
months.
were filing divorce
So
papers.
on a Tuesday, I called. I've been asking him for about 6 or 7 months. Because keep in mind, I had my little friend on the side. I'm like, do you want a divorce? Nah, I don't want a divorce. At one point, he said to me, we can get a divorce and then we can get back together. Bruh, when I divorce you or you divorce me, ain't no back together. I meant that. I'm not. Hey, absolutely not. So I called him. I've been talking to him. I've been going to my pastor. Because at this time, I'm in church, right? Mm-hmm. Went to my pastor on a Sunday afternoon. I said, hey, pastor, I'm done. And he had been telling me, because we had one marriage counseling with my pastor. He came to it when we was first separated. And the pastor just said, he was like, y'all going to be together. And I'm like, oh. And I was so happy. Like, oh. He went right out the door and done whatever it was he was doing. I was like, all right, pastor, I don't know. You might be a little off. So on a Sunday after church, I went to the back of my pastor's office. And I said, I'm done. I'm ready to get a divorce. And he asked me every time I would say that, are you seeing somebody else? And I would always say no. So this particular Sunday, he said, are you seeing somebody else? I said, yes, sir. He said, okay, then you're done. I said, so I can get a divorce? He said, yes. Because that's how strongly I believed what my pastor said. So I was like, cool. Yes. Tuesday, baby, I was at the paralegal. Give me them papers. Chop, chop. I called him. I said, hey, I got the papers. Let's get divorced. Keep in mind, my friend already gave me the money weeks ago. Get it done. So I'm like, okay, let's get it done. So on and so forth. He comes over. We sign the papers. We get into an argument about money. Keep in mind, we've been together in 26 months. We arguing about who spent the most money, who made the most money, who broke the money, all of that. And so we were done. At the end of the conversation, he left mad. I was mad. And I think we were really mad because it was like, dang, it's really over. I think that Friday night, he came over. He called and said he was on his way. And I'm like, okay. But I think when you got there, I was gone. Did you come over there Friday night?
I did.
When he got there, I was gone.
Okay. So before we get to the end part, at what point did y'all stop seeing each other in that 26 months?
Never.
So the whole 26 months, all the way to the end, y'all was still having rendezvous.
Hey, at one point in the 26 months, I got pregnant.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, by him. He's like, where the baby is? He was like, they'll be back for show number 4. No, I was pregnant by him. The baby didn't make it, but at some point, I got pregnant. So yeah. At no point in that 26 months did we stop seeing each other? Did we stop sleeping together? I did everything that he asked me to do in those 26 months. The house we were living in, when I was saying I wanted him to come home, he said, I will not come back to the house. So I moved to another state because I live in Kansas. I moved from Kansas to Independence, Missouri, thinking, okay, took him, showed him the place, whatever. He wasn't ready. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like I was doing everything what made me tired and when I was done was like, I've done my part. I've done everything. By the time I got to the point and I finally decided to file for divorce, I was done with boyfriend. Even though boyfriend had gave me the money, by the time I took the money to the lady, I was done with him. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm like, I don't want to be with you either. Who want to be with somebody that been with me this whole time when I've been married to somebody else?
Right.
Because I was honest. I'm like, I love this guy. If he come back tomorrow, I cannot guarantee you that I won't take him back. Right. He was like, okay, well, get a divorce. And I'm like,
I was about to say. So in this 26 months, oh boy, we're still deciding. Okay. Deciding. Deciding.
I just think he was a Mexican, so he was a side Mexican.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, they don't care anyway, because
and here was the thing. I knew that there was nowhere this relationship would go. Again, I was using him because I felt like he was never going to come back, and I needed to be able to move forward.
So, in order to be able to move forward, you felt like by replacing him,
that would help me move. You know what I'm saying? That would help me move forward.
But it never did, really.
No, it didn't, because I never loved him. I didn't have an emotional connection with this guy. He was a good friend. He was somebody that I hung out with. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't him, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so, in looking for a replacement for him, there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I get it.
She answered a question I was going to ask. So.
No, he wasn't him.
Yeah, because I remember that. I remember when we were first courting one another, and he was still messing. He was the side piece at that point.
Okay.
He was still messing with a girl, and I really liked him, but I didn't. We wasn't. He was still connected to her. He had that soul tie, that unholy connection, and yes, I said unholy connection. So
I don't even want to know what you just said.
But so yeah, he came by that Friday night. I think when he came by, I was not at home because at this point, once we filed for divorce, we decided we were gonna have a divorce. I was no longer going to keep my life a secret, so I wasn't there when he came by. That Saturday morning, he came over. We were supposed to meet the paralegal at 10:30. I can remember like it was yesterday. He came over. He was throwing rocks at my window because my room was upstairs, and I let him in. He came in, and we were talking. I think I was getting ready to cooking breakfast or something. We were talking, and he was like, "Yeah, so I don't want to get a divorce." And I said, "Oh, that's awesome. That's great for you." I want a divorce. He was like, "No, I don't think." I was like, "No." So I said, "I tell you what." Well, I tell you what. If you call and talk to my pastor, and my pastor tells me not to get a divorce, then I won't. Now, keep in mind, I just talked to my pastor Sunday, and he told me to get a divorce.
Okay.
God might tell the pastor something different.
You want to tell him about going to meet with the pastor?
Come on, tell us about the pastor.
Yeah, tell us about that, because there's another question I want to ask you, something that we haven't talked about yet.
As far as the pastor, I called him. And we had a conversation. I told him that I wanted to reconcile my marriage. I told him that Tiff didn't want to reconcile my marriage.
Told on me.
So I put him on the phone with her.
Wow. Just to say, he's like, let me talk to her, huh?
Pastor was like, hey, daughter. Hey, Pastor, how you doing? Yeah, I want you and your husband to get back together. All right, Pastor. I don't want to. All right. And I hung up the phone. I told him, I'm like, I'm good, bro. So it was 10:30 at night. That was a Saturday. Oh, we went to dinner. He told me to go to dinner with him. So we went to dinner. And all that dinner, I'm like, nah, I'm good. 10:30 at night, my kids on a youth outing. I went to church. And there was my pastor in his office at 10:30 at night. I'm thinking, why are you here? So I walked past his office. He was on the phone. I was like, hey, how you doing? Walked past him. He said, hey, come back here. I said, yes, sir. He said, did you do what I said? I said, yes, sir. I went to dinner. He said, did you do what I said? Yes, sir. I went to dinner. He said, I'm going to need you to take your husband back. I'm like, no, I ain't going to be able to do it. He said, and he told me you was mean. I'm thinking you just as sweet as can be. And I'm like, yeah. And so I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the conversation, he prayed for me, and I said, okay, I trust you. I've trusted you for 2 years. I trusted you when you was going to get back together. I trusted you when you said file for divorce. I trust you. Okay. So he had to clean up his, so I called the lady. Actually, when he called the pastor to schedule the meeting, I called the paralegal who were going to have the papers notarized with so we could file them that Monday. And I said, hold on to the, just hold on to him and I will reschedule with you. Keep in mind, I had already paid her. Yeah, I never got my money back. But yeah, and it took him a month to come back. A month to come home. About a month.
Yeah, about a month.
Yeah. And that's when we were talking about the breakup with the breakup.
That's what I was going to ask about. Because just to hear that like that, it's, to me, the way I think it's layers to it.
Yes.
So many layers.
That's why I want to hear the layers.
We're just trying to smooth over it because an hour we've been talking about this for the next 6 months.
But a breakup with the breakup, because even though y'all was broke up, y'all wasn't really broke up.
But
Y'all
he's breaking up with
but-
he's breaking up with our girl.
Yeah.
We good.
See,
Okay.
that's what it's dealing with. It was dealing with the one that he was with at that time, not Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one.
No, it wasn't one.
The two.
It was two.
Oh,
Whoa.
okay.
By
Okay.
the time-
Double breakup.
Wait a
Okay.
minute, it's just more and more.
And the shocker continues.
Did you say that? Wow.
Yeah, by
Okay.
the time we get to 26 months, yeah, then I'm in.
Two relationships.
Two
Three
relationships.
relationships.
Yeah, but two relationships.
Okay,
Oh.
she wasn't really in a relationship.
Yeah.
But,
He
okay.
pimping. Okay, okay.
Oh, Lord, it's about time. Jesus.
Sorry. I'm trying to bring some
So
comedy about
that's
it.
the deep end that we're talking about.
Oh,
So
God,
when
you
we
was
say that
real
you're out-
deep.
While they think that they had questions for y'all and y'all unfolding in front of them.
Yeah.
I'm digging it though. It makes more questions because how many other people, how many other women or men have been in these types of situations and they can go to the church or to somebody that they can really trust to help them get back to a place of reconciliation, whether it was y'all idea or not, you know what I'm saying?
It was our idea.
It happened. So, so how did you wheel and deal 3 different personalities, sir?
Well, it was
I
really,
have more than one.
yeah, it was really
Okay,
just the
5
two.
or 6, whatever.
But when I look back at it, it's crazy because each one felt a void. So from an emotional standpoint, there was one that felt that void, and as far as a physical connection, there was one that felt another void. So you had what used to be her making me complete or making me whole as husband and wife. It
Mhm.
was 2 people feeling
The shoes of the one.
I'm bad. No.
She's back, man.
That's very interesting because how you have some situations to where how you may see to where a woman has a man that feels this void, this void, this void, this void, this void, or how you may see certain memes and a woman has like 5 men to fill these certain voids. But it's very interesting to hear it from a male perspective because it's something that you don't hear a lot of times.
It's because men ain't telling that they out there doing it. But to be honest with you, when men are single, that's what they do. They have one that's a mama, one that might cook and clean. Then they have one that might fulfill that freak area. Then they might have one that they can talk to that's real cool. Then they might have one that might can touch a little bit on all of them when each one of them can't do it. Oh, when you hang out with guys, you learn stuff like this.
Well, let's just say this, and I want to just interject real quick. Boys have a lot of toys. Until you become a man,
Come on.
when you mature, that's when you take on that one
They
responsibility.
probably all like, what's the voice in the background?
That's the producer in the background.
Right. And I agree with you on that statement. But the challenge for men in marriage, and I tell single women all the time. When you marry a man from 26 to 37, it's going to be the biggest challenge because for a man, the frontal lobe doesn't even close until he's 27. That's the piece that controls the emotion, how you make sound decisions, how you socialize. So for us, we're always playing catch up when it comes to the woman in that particular area. So you have to be able to, and I'll say this, and I was going to make a Facebook status. As a wife, check this out, wife. Here's marriage 101. As a wife,
Come on,
you have to be able to, one,
Stuart.
embrace his strengths, and you got to nurture his flaws.
Come on,
because right now he's an imperfect man.
Yes.
Trying to be a good man, but right now he's an imperfect man. So, and what happens is women get frustrated because he's not perfect. That's why
And neither is she.
she's not. But if her strengths should complement him, and his weaknesses is where she picks up the slack. And what happens is women get frustrated because you find here, okay, say for instance, he's not a good money manager.
Mm-hmm.
And you are. But you're mad at him because he blows his check every week. Well, teach him how to manage his money.
Come up with a solution.
Come up with a solution.
Yes.
Teach him.
We are supposed to be
Right?
those
I'm a
problem
procrastinator.
solvers.
So how my wife solves that? She'll send me 5 texts every day. Did you do this? Have you done this yet? Have you followed through? Because she knows that's my flaw. That's not my strength.
And I'm okay with that because to me, I heard somebody say, "Mr. Jacked Up marries Mrs. Jacked Up, and they become 2 jacked up people." No, it should be 2 complete people becoming one whole person. Which means my husband accessorized me. He got a bad pair of red bottoms. He got the $16,000 bag.
Okay.
He's a you know what I'm saying. So when I am with him, I'm at my very, very best. So when he's with me, he's at his very, very best.
Yes.
So not only am I, and I think I said this last week, as the neck, my job is to stabilize him. So there are some things that I'm going to bring to his life that I should bring to his life that enhance who he is. And that enhance, and I don't ever want him to, I'm a wife that covers. So you'll never hear me talk bad about my husband. You'll never hear me embarrass him, ever. Because he's me, and my job is to cover him, and his job is to cover me. So that's how when we got back after the 26 months, and we decided we was gonna be together. We knew that there was going to be obstacles. We knew that there was going to be conversations. We knew that people were going to ask questions. And we got to the point where initially I was always willing to talk about it, and he wasn't. He was embarrassed, and I'm like, "You ain't got to be embarrassed. We good. You tell everybody that want to know whatever they asked you. You tell them because that's free. We can talk about this all day because we're free. If we were living a lie or if we were living in bondage, it would be very difficult for us to expose ourselves to you. But in order for somebody to be healed, there has to be exposure. What do they tell you when you get a wound? They tell you to leave it uncovered so it can be healed. So we're truly uncovered because somebody else needs to be healed. Somebody else needs to know that you can live past infidelity. You can live through it. You can live past it.
That's right. Come on, sis.
Our marriage is better than it was when we broke up. He's still my very best friend. The funny thing is, I'm trying to think what changed other than it got better. I don't know. Well, except I was at home. I didn't.
So I want to interject a minute.
There was a lot of things that changed.
I want to interject for a moment because I remember when me and my husband first got together and we were talking marriage. We were 23, and his mom was like, "He's not ready," but God was telling him that he was ready. And I understand now why God was telling him he was ready. But then when I accepted his proposal, let me tell you, we was about a year in. And I was like, I done married the devil. What have I done? Okay? Because he was being straight up foolish. He started acting foolish about the money. He started acting foolish about everything. And I'm a non-tolerant person when it comes to certain things. So I'm like, Lord, what did I do? Did I really hear you say marry this stuff? I was out, and this was my no lie. I didn't understand about that cortex or vortex or vertex or whatever you said closing up. I didn't understand that.
The frontal lobe.
Frontal lobe, yeah, that's good. Thank you, help us sister out. And so I didn't understand about none of that closing up. But even in those times, when I was frustrated with him, I still covered him. Nobody ever knew I was going through that. Nobody ever knew that I was dealing with the foolishness behind the scenes from this joker. You know, all they could see was what they could see and envy what they thought they saw. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, that's good. So let me tell you this. There are people who talk about our marriage, how great it is, and how they would love to be. I had this particular friend, and she would tell me how amazing my husband is. Your husband is awesome, and your husband is great. And I tell people all the time, to get to where we are, there's some things that you got to walk through.
Come
And you don't want to
on
walk through.
now.
You don't want to put on everybody's shoes to get to where they are.
I'm telling
Because
you.
you may not make it to this point. Just because I don't want anybody out there thinking, oh, they had infidelity in their marriage and they made it. That's not everybody's story. Everybody ain't me. And everybody ain't him. And everybody don't have the grace of God to do what God chose to do in our life. And what happened was He made us a living miracle. We are walking, living, breathing miracles.
Come on now.
So yeah.
So
I think it's
Okay.
but let me finish stressing that frontal lobe part.
Yes.
But then I know, only 7 minutes, y'all. Okay. But God told me, because what happened was I was interceding for him one day, and I was crying out to God about the things that I was dealing with or whatever. And God said, He said, now when you get through crying, get up. He said, because did you marry him? Did you know he wasn't mature in those areas? I said, yes, Lord. He said, then zip it and go through it. I was like, oh! Okay, so I went through it, but I went through it in silence because there was no one for me to come to get the encouragement, to push me, the encouragement to push me, to help me to stay before the Lord, to help me to stay covering my husband, to help me not, expose, even though I didn't expose his weaknesses. But, there was no one there to encourage that. You know what I'm saying? To push, push and, help me pray my way through these things. Because at the same time, I was still 23 too. Although I had matured, we were both the same age. So, there was a lot of things that went on in that time. And so it was very interesting to hear that, you say that the man's frontal lobe does not, because, I was about to mess it up again. The frontal lobe don't close until 27, you said? Oh my goodness. Now, what if they immature for a longer time than that? Do that mean that frontal lobe ain't closed?
Let me write it out. I think that I learned so much. I think we talked about this off the air last time. How much I learned about me in that separation. How I wasn't taught what submission was, the strength in submission. I wasn't taught the strength in submission. And a lot of times, I think we talked about when young men are reared by women, there's a softness that a woman creates in a young man that's reared by a woman. I can teach my sons all day long how a woman is supposed to love a man, but I can never teach them how a man is supposed to love a woman.
Right.
And so if you don't see it mimicked, and sometimes even if it's mimicked incorrectly, you live it. So what I learned in those 7 years is that I had to be his soft place. There's no time that he can't be vulnerable with me that I won't, you know what I'm saying? We're not going to have a conversation. If he come to me and he's in a weak spot, I'm not going to exploit him for that. We're going to deal with it, and I'm going to lift him up, and we're going to keep it moving. Same thing with me.
That's right. Amen. What you got to say, Elder Stewart, to close it out? Because we got to.
This is the fastest hour in the world.
See what I'm saying?
When I'm at work all day, an hour never goes fast.
That's why I told you. Y'all go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry, baby. Go ahead.
It's kind of funny that you alluded to the man's frontal lobe and when it closes. I was talking to my wife last week about something that God had been impressioning on me to possibly do for our show. And it's dealing with the process of becoming a man, from becoming a man to understanding your identity. Because even in that, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of bumps. And I can understand from my standpoint, myself, from a lot of the things that I had to go through and I had to deal with. That was one of my biggest issues. Accepting and learning what my identity was.
As we wrap up, the biggest challenge in the 26 months that we were separated was owning my responsibility in the infidelity, because it automatically comes with people are so judgmental.
Yes, they are. Yes,
And
they
they're
are.
judgmental without ever having a conversation.
Yeah.
And no one ever had a conversation.
But you could tell what they looks.
They
looks.
Yeah, nobody ever have a conversation, and it makes you feel as if you're just unworthy. You're unworthy of the relationship. You're unworthy of the marriage. You feel disrespected. You feel unvalued. And it's a tough place to be. But I will say this. We did not enter back into the marriage after the 26 years. The same 26 months. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for 26 years, I'd have been like, all right, bro.
We were not the same people that we were when we separated.
Amen.
And that's what made it work. People want to separate, but nobody ever wants to change. And it's difficult to go from a separation back into a marriage, the same people you were when you separated.
That's right.
That doesn't work. So we weren't the same people. And we grew, we learned. And the great part is she had renewed her relationship with Christ. And that was the inspirational point for change for me. I was like, oh, she different.
Yeah, she different.
She was different in a good way.
Yes.
I want to add something. When you said that God told you to go back, and when you accepted God's way instead of your own way, and when she recommitted her, relationship back with Christ, that was symbolicness of God, bringing the union back.
And she didn't give a testimony. There was a conversation, and I know we're wrapping up, that she had in the shower, and just give it real quick.
There was a conversation that I had with God in the shower, crying, because that's where I did most of my crying in the shower about, this is before he decided to come back, before the reverend and all that. And I remember standing in the shower and I cried and I said, God, why me? And God said, if not you, then who?
Ooh.
And at that moment, I said, God, if you're to bring my husband back, at the time I only knew it was one chick. If you're to bring my husband back, don't let her feel what I feel. Don't let her hurt the way that I hurt. What I will tell you is when your heart desire lines up with God's heart desire, he can give you the desire of your heart. So when I stopped praying for God to save my marriage and to save my husband, if you never bring him back, save his soul. When my prayer life changed, then God can bring him back to me, because now my heart desire matches God's heart desire, and he can give me the desire of my heart.
Come on now. That's ministry right there. That is, come on, dude. That is ministry, y'all. We are really having some ministry here. Even for those that don't know God, but might be in a situation where they are experiencing or have experienced and will like reconciliation in their marriage. There is room, but you have to change. You have to be willing to be the first change agent in order that God can be the complete change agent in your whole entire situation. Well, guys, we really appreciate you all for tuning in on today, a part 2 of Infidelity. Oh, next week is going to be the bomb, because I love black love is all I'm saying. Come on, black love. I love black love. And so next week, we will be talking about the reconciliation of this marriage and how God healed it and blended. And now they have almost 20 years? Won't he do it? Yes, he will. So this is the end of our show. For those who missed it, go back, watch the playback. If you got any questions, please interject. Okay, guys?
We are checking it throughout the week.
We are checking it. We want to thank you all for tuning in and see y'all next week on Marriage 101 with the Allen.